This story is titled, My Stuff Keeps Moving. So I set up Rat Trap in my bedroom, and next day, my mother-in-law gets into it, and oh boy, it is a mess. Hey there! We put a lot of effort into finding the best stories for you. If you're enjoying them and want to help us out, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really supports our channel. Now let's start the video. OP starts by saying, Hey Reddit, I don't even know where to start. I've never been the kind of person to post stuff online like this, but I'm seriously at a loss and need some outside opinions. Buckle up because this is a lot. So, about a month ago, my mother-in-law moved in with us. My husband was the one who suggested it. She was going through a rough patch. Financial issues, family drama. I didn't ask too many questions. And he said it'd be temporary. I didn't love the idea, but I also didn't want to be the bad guy who said no. She's his mom after all, and I figured it wouldn't be forever. At first, it was fine. She mostly kept to herself, staying in the guest room and doing her thing. I went about my daily routine, work, errands, whatever, and didn't think too much about it. But then little things started happening. You know how sometimes you get this weird gut feeling that something's off? That was me. The first time I noticed, it was something small. I came home from work, went into the bedroom to change, and realized my jewelry box wasn't sitting where I'd left it. It wasn't a big move, just shifted a little to the side, but it was enough to catch my attention. I asked my husband if he'd touched it, and he gave me this confused look like, why would I? Fair point. He's not exactly the type to care about my earrings. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I'd moved it myself and just didn't remember. But over the next week, it kept happening. My clothes would be folded differently in the drawers, my perfume bottles weren't where I'd left them. Even the furniture felt like it had been nudged around. At this point, I was starting to feel paranoid. I know my husband didn't do it because, honestly, he barely sets foot in the bedroom except to sleep. And it wasn't like things were missing. Nothing was stolen, just moved. Like someone had been going through my stuff. That's when the suspicion hit me. It had to be my MIL. She was the only other person in the house. But why? What could she possibly want from rifling through my things? It wasn't like I had any deep, dark secrets tucked away in my sock drawer. I tried to keep an open mind. Maybe there was some innocent explanation? Maybe she was looking for something and didn't want to bother me. But the more I thought about it, the more it bugged me. This was my personal space. Our bedroom. A place where I should feel safe and comfortable, not like I have to second-guess everything. So I decided to talk to my husband. Big mistake. I told him what I'd noticed, the moved jewelry box, the shifted furniture, all of it, and suggested that maybe his mom had been in our room. His reaction? Total denial. Mom would never do that, he said, as if I was accusing her of some heinous crime. I tried to explain that I wasn't saying she had bad intentions, just that it was making me uncomfortable. But he shut me down completely. She's not like that, he kept saying, like it was impossible. Okay, fine. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was reading too much into things. But the problem didn't go away. If anything, it got worse. A few days later, I came home to find the closet door slightly ajar. Now, I'm meticulous about closing doors. I don't know why, it's just a habit. So I knew I hadn't left it open. I looked inside and saw that some of my clothes had been pushed aside, like someone had been flipping through them. At this point, I was fuming. It felt like an invasion of privacy. I wanted to confront her directly, but I didn't have proof. And what if I was wrong? What if I accused her of something she didn't do? I didn't want to cause unnecessary drama. I brought it up to my husband again, and surprise, surprise, he still didn't believe me. You're overthinking it, he said, like I was some kind of conspiracy theorist. I asked him if he'd at least talk to her, just to see if she'd admit to it. He refused. I'm not going to accuse my mom of something like that, he said. She's going through a lot right now. Can't you just let it go? Let it go? Seriously? By this point, I felt completely dismissed. My husband wasn't taking me seriously, and I couldn't confront his mom without risking a full-blown family feud. So, what was I supposed to do? Just live with it? Pretend it wasn't happening? That's when I decided I needed to take matters into my own hands. If no one was going to believe me, I'd have to prove it. But how? I thought about installing a camera in the bedroom, but that felt extreme. And honestly, I didn't want to deal with the fallout if my husband found out. Alright, so here's where things start to heat up. After weeks of feeling like I was losing my mind, I decided it was time to take action. My mother-in-law wasn't about to admit she'd been snooping, and my husband sure as hell wasn't going to confront her. So, I had to get creative. The fake positive pregnancy test I ordered online arrived a couple of days later. It came in this plain, boring package, and when I opened it, it looked pretty convincing. Like, you'd never know it wasn't real unless you were in on the joke. The two little pink lines stared back at me like they were daring me to go through with it. I'll admit, I felt a bit guilty at first. It's not like I wanted to mess with anyone's feelings, but I was at my wit's end. How else was I supposed to prove my mother-in-law was going through our stuff? I decided the best way to do this was to keep it simple. No need to make a big show of it or act suspicious. I just tossed the test in the trash can in our bedroom and went about my day like nothing was different. The trash can, by the way, was strategically placed near the closet. It wasn't somewhere anyone would casually check, unless they were already poking around. I didn't even tell my husband about it because, honestly, I didn't trust him not to tip her off. The next morning, I got ready for work like usual. My husband left before me, and my mother-in-law was downstairs when I walked out the door. I didn't give any hints that something was up. In fact, I went out of my way to act totally normal, just in case she was watching me like a hawk. Now, let me just say, I didn't expect the reaction to be this immediate. I thought maybe she'd see the test, sit on the information for a while, or, best case scenario, come to me directly about it. Instead, about 2 hours into my shift at work, my phone started blowing up. I checked it during a break and saw that I had a bunch of missed calls and texts. At first, I panicked, thinking something bad had happened, but then I saw the messages. Period. Congratulations, sweetie. We're so happy for you. Can't wait to meet the little one. When's the due date? What the hell? It didn't take long to piece things together. My mother-in-law had obviously found the test and taken it upon herself to spread the good news to the entire family. Never mind the fact that she didn't confirm it with me or my husband first. She just went ahead and made the announcement like it was her own personal news to share. And then, because my life is apparently a sitcom, my husband showed up at my workplace. He looked completely frazzled, like he'd just run a marathon. I'll never forget the look on his face. This mix of excitement, confusion, and maybe a little panic. He pulled me aside and said, "Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Since when? How far along are you?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My first reaction was pure shock, and it must have shown on my face because he followed up with, "Your mom found the test in the trash. Why didn't you say anything?" That's when it hit me. She hadn't just found the test. She'd gone snooping, just like I thought. But instead of keeping her discovery to herself, she decided to tell everyone. And now I was standing in the middle of my workplace, trying to figure out how to explain myself without looking like a total lunatic. I took a deep breath and asked him point blank, "So, let me get this straight. Your mom was in our bedroom, going through the trash, and that's how she found out about this?" He kind of froze for a second, like he hadn't put two and two together yet. Then he said, "Well, that's not the point. The point is, you didn't tell me." "Not the point? Are you kidding me?" I could feel my blood boiling. I told him, "The test isn't real. I only put it there because I needed to prove she was snooping." And just like that, the excitement on his face disappeared. He stared at me like I'd just confessed to committing a crime. "What do you mean it's not real?" he asked, his voice getting louder. "It's fake. I bought it online," I explained. "She's been going through our stuff, and you wouldn't believe me, so I set a trap. And guess what? She fell for it. You'd think he'd be mad at his mom for invading our privacy, but nope. Instead, he was mad at me. He started going off about how I'd lied and how it was cruel to mess with his mom's feelings like that. I tried to remind him that none of this would have happened if she hadn't been snooping in the first place, but he wasn't hearing it. The worst part? He insisted I take a real pregnancy test right then and there to prove I wasn't hiding anything. In front of him. I felt humiliated, but I agreed just to shut him up. Of course, the test came back negative, and he acted like that was the real betrayal. Not the fact that his mom had crossed a major boundary. By the time I got home, I had a migraine from all the stress. Mother-in-law was acting all cheerful and smug, like she hadn't just caused a massive fight between me and my husband. And when I tried to bring up the snooping, she completely ignored me and said, "Well, I guess we all make mistakes." Oh, I was fuming. But what could I say? My husband was on her side, and now the entire family thought I was some kind of manipulative liar. And the thing? She still hasn't admitted she was wrong, not once. When I got home that evening, I could feel the tension in the air before I even opened the door. My husband was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone like he wasn't furious at me just a couple of hours earlier. His silence felt louder than anything he could have said. I braced myself and walked in, heading straight for the kitchen to avoid starting another argument. But of course, that wasn't going to happen. "Do you realize how upset my mom is?" he asked, not even bothering to look up from his phone. There it was. Not, "I'm upset," not, "We need to talk." Nope, It was all about his mom. Again. I turned to him, trying to stay calm. Your mom is upset? What about me? I've been dealing with this for weeks, and instead of supporting me, you're acting like I'm the bad guy. He finally put his phone down and looked at me, but his expression was stone cold. Because you lied. You set her up for no reason. No reason? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She's been snooping through our bedroom. Our bedroom, the one place in this house that's supposed to be private. And you're okay with that? He sighed like I was the one exhausting him, like I was the problem. She's going through a tough time, and maybe she was just looking for something. You don't know what's going on in her head. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Exactly. I don't know what's going on in her head, and that's what freaks me out. What if she's been messing with my stuff or reading through my personal things? That's not normal, and it's definitely not okay. He didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he just shook his head and muttered something about how I'd handled this all wrong. By the time I got upstairs, I was too drained to even be angry. I sat on the bed and looked around the room, the same room where I'd caught her red-handed. I thought about all the little things she'd touched, moved, or looked through. Suddenly, it didn't feel like my space anymore. I wanted to cry, but I was too stubborn to let myself. Instead, I started making a mental list of everything I'd need to do to protect my things. Maybe I'd get a lockbox for my valuables, or start keeping my important documents in my work bag. The fact that I even had to think about this made my stomach turn. Atur for sao. The next morning, things got even worse. I woke up to a slew of texts from my husband's family. Apparently, mother-in-law had wasted no time sharing her side of the story with everyone. And of course, she'd made herself out to be the victim. One text from his aunt read, "How could you be so cruel to mother-in-law? She was so happy about the pregnancy news, and now you've crushed her." Another from his cousin said, "You should have just talked to her instead of playing games. This is so childish." My personal favorite came from his sister. "You're toxic. My brother deserves better than someone who treats his mom like this." It was like getting punched in the gut over and over again. Not a single person in his family seemed to care about the fact that mother-in-law had been snooping. All they saw was a woman whose feelings had been hurt, and I was the villain who'd done it. I showed my husband the messages, hoping he'd finally understand how out of hand this was getting. But he just shrugged. "What did you expect?" "What do you mean, what did I expect?" I asked, my voice starting to rise. "Your mom went through our stuff and told everyone about something she had no business knowing. But somehow I'm the one who's wrong?" "She didn't mean any harm," he said, as if that excused everything. "And you have to admit, what you did was pretty extreme." I felt like I was talking to a brick wall. No matter how much I tried to explain, he couldn't, or wouldn't, see my side of things. It wasn't just about the fake pregnancy test anymore. It was about respect, privacy, and the fact that I couldn't trust the people I lived with. Later that day, mother-in-law cornered me in the kitchen. I was washing dishes when she walked in, her arms crossed like she was preparing for battle. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there watching me. I could feel her eyes on my back, and it made my skin crawl. Finally, she broke the silence. "I just want you to know that I forgive you," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I turned to face her, gripping the dish towel in my hand. "Forgive me? For what?" "For the pregnancy test," she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "I know you didn't mean to hurt anyone. You probably just weren't thinking straight." I stared at her, my jaw practically on the floor. "You forgive me? How about you apologize for going through our bedroom and making an announcement without even talking to us first?" Her face twisted into a look of pure indignation. "I wasn't snooping," she said, her voice rising. "I was tidying up. If you didn't want me to see it, you shouldn't have left it there." Oh my God. She wasn't even trying to deny it anymore. She was justifying it. "That's not the point," I shot back. "The point is, you violated my privacy, and instead of owning up to it, you're playing the victim." Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I thought she might actually apologize. But instead, she just shook her head and said, "You need to grow up. This isn't just your house, it's your husband's too, and I'm his mother." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I threw the dish towel on the counter and walked out of the kitchen, leaving her standing there with that smug look on her face. That night, I started seriously considering my options. Could I live like this, constantly feeling like I had to defend myself in my own home? Was this the kind of marriage I wanted to be in, where my husband sided with his mom no matter what? I didn't have any answers, but I knew one thing for sure. Something had to change. By the time the weekend rolled around, I was completely drained. My husband and I were barely speaking, and when we did, it felt like we were talking past each other. Mother-in-law, on the other hand, seemed to be in great spirits. She acted like nothing had happened, like she hadn't stirred up a family-wide drama over something that wasn't even real. I needed space, so I decided to spend Saturday running errands and grabbing lunch on my own. As I drove around, I thought about everything that had happened. I kept replaying the arguments in my head, trying to figure out where it all went so wrong. How did I end up in a situation where my husband and his entire family were against me? When I got home, I found mother-in-law in the living room, folding laundry that clearly wasn't hers. My clothes were neatly piled on the coffee table, along with some of my husband's shirts. She glanced up when I walked in, her expression a mix of surprise and annoyance. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Hello?" she replied curtly, going back to folding. I stood there for a moment, watching her handle my things without a second thought. It felt like yet another invasion of privacy, but I didn't have the energy to call her out on it. Instead, I grabbed my laundry and took it upstairs. As I was putting my clothes away, I noticed something odd. My underwear drawer had been rearranged. Again, this wasn't the first time it had happened, but it still sent a chill down my spine. I hadn't touched that drawer in days, so there was no way this was an accident. I sat down on the bed, clutching a pair of socks like they were evidence in a crime. My heart was pounding as I thought about all the possibilities. Was she just being nosy, or was there something more sinister going on? Later that evening, I decided to bring it up with my husband again. I knew it was risky, but I couldn't keep ignoring it. "Can we talk?" I asked as he sat on the couch scrolling through his phone. He didn't look up. "About what?" "Your mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She's been going through my stuff again. I found my underwear drawer rearranged today." He sighed and finally set his phone down. "You don't know that it was her. Who else could it be?" I asked, exasperated. "You're not doing it, and I sure as hell didn't do it myself." "Maybe she was just cleaning," he said, like it was no big deal. "Cleaning? In my underwear drawer?" I snapped. "That's not cleaning, that's snooping." His face hardened. "Why do you always assume the worst? She's just trying to help." "Help?" I repeated, my voice rising. "She's invading my privacy. I shouldn't have to explain why that's a problem." He shook his head. "You're blowing this way out of proportion." I felt my stomach drop. No matter how much I tried to explain, he just didn't get it. Or maybe he didn't want to. Either way, it was clear I wasn't going to get any support from him. The final straw came the next day. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I overheard mother-in-law talking to someone on the phone. She was in the living room, her voice just loud enough to carry into the next room. "She's so sensitive," she was saying. "I don't know how husband puts up with her. If it were me, I'd tell her to get over it." I froze, my hand tightening around the coffee mug. "She's always making a big deal out of nothing," she continued. "I was just trying to help, and now she's acting like I'm some kind of criminal. Honestly, I think she's just insecure." I couldn't take it anymore. I walked into the living room, my heart pounding. "Is there something you'd like to say to me directly?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger. She looked up, startled, but quickly recovered. "I was just talking to a friend," she said, her tone icy. "Yeah, I heard," I replied. "And for the record, I'm not insecure. I just don't appreciate you going through my things and then playing the victim when I call you out on it." She rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting. I was only trying to keep the house tidy. You should be thanking me, not accusing me of snooping." "Thanking you?" I repeated, my voice rising. "For violating my privacy and spreading false information about me to the entire family?" At that moment, my husband walked in. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between the two of us. "Your wife is accusing me of snooping again," mother-in-law said, crossing her arms. "I'm tired of being treated like a criminal in my own son's house." I turned to my husband, hoping, praying, that he'd finally stand up for me. But instead, he just sighed and said, "Can we all just calm down?" "Calm down?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Your mom has been going through my things, trash-talking me to your family, and now she's accusing me of being the problem. How am I supposed to calm down?" "Because you're making this bigger than it needs to be," he said, rubbing his temples like he was the one dealing with a headache. I stared at him, my anger quickly turning to despair. It was like he couldn't or wouldn't see what was really happening. "Aishirasha!" That night, I locked the bedroom door for the first time since mother-in-law moved in. My husband complained about it, saying it was unnecessary. But I didn't care. I needed to feel like I had some control over my own space, even if it was just symbolic. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about everything that had happened. My mother-in-law had turned my life upside down, and my husband had let her. I felt trapped, like I was living in someone else's house instead of my own. Something had to give. I couldn't keep living like this. By this point, I felt like I was living in a constant state of unease. My bedroom didn't feel like a private space anymore. My husband's loyalty seemed firmly tied to his mother, and the rest of his family had labeled me as the villain in this twisted story. Every time I tried to set boundaries, it only escalated into more drama. It was like I couldn't win, no matter what I did. A couple of days after the phone call incident, I came home from work and found mother-in-law sitting at the dining table with my husband. They stopped talking the second I walked in, which was the first red flag. The second red flag was the way mother-in-law gave me this smug little smile, like she knew something I didn't. "What's going on?" I asked, setting my bag down and eyeing them suspiciously. "Nothing," my husband said quickly, a little too quickly. "We were just talking." I didn't believe him for a second, but I decided not to press it. Instead, I went upstairs to the bedroom, and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. My bedside drawer was slightly open. Now, I know for a fact that I hadn't left it like that. I always close it before I leave for work, and I hadn't touched it since the night before. My mind started racing. What had she been looking for this time? I opened the drawer and rifled through it, checking to see if anything was missing or out of place. That's when I noticed my stash of birth control pills. The packet was still there, but something about it seemed off. I picked it up and realized that one of the pills was missing. My hands started to shake. I counted the remaining pills over and over, hoping I was wrong, but no, it was definitely short by one. I stormed back downstairs, my heart pounding in my chest. Mother-in-law was still sitting at the table, looking entirely too comfortable in my house. "Did you go through my stuff again?" I demanded, holding up the packet of birth control pills as evidence. She raised an eyebrow and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb," I snapped. "I know you've been in my drawer, and now one of my pills is missing. Care to explain that?" Her expression didn't waver. "I don't need to explain anything to you," she said coolly. "Maybe you just misplaced it." "Misplaced it?" I repeated, my voice rising. "How do you misplace a single birth control pill? You were in my room and you took this. Admit it." At that point, my husband intervened. "What's going on?" he asked, stepping between us like he was some kind of referee. "She's been in my room again," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "And now one of my birth control pills is missing." Mother-in-law let out a dramatic sigh. "I didn't take anything," she said, acting like she was the victim. "She's always accusing me of things I didn't do." "I'm not making this up," I yelled. "You've been snooping since the day you moved in, and now you've crossed the line." My husband put his hands up like he was trying to defuse a bomb. "Okay, everyone needs to calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down," I snapped. "Your mom is messing with my things, and you're just standing there like it's no big deal." "I don't think she would do that," he said, his voice careful. "Maybe it's just a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You think I'm making this up?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I'm just saying maybe you're overreacting," he said. Overreacting. That word hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt tears welling up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. That night, I locked the bedroom door again and sat on the bed, staring at the packet of pills in my hand. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, feeling more and more isolated with each passing minute. This wasn't just about snooping anymore. This was about trust, or the lack of it. My mother-in-law didn't respect my boundaries, and my husband didn't believe me. It felt like I was fighting a losing battle. And the more I tried to stand up for myself, the more I was painted as the bad guy. I started thinking about what my life would look like if things stayed the way they were. Would I always have to live with someone invading my privacy? Would I always have to walk on eggshells around my own husband? The thought was unbearable. The next morning, I made a decision. I waited until my husband was at work and mother-in-law was out running errands. Then I packed a bag with some essentials: clothes, toiletries, and a few personal items I couldn't bear to leave behind. I wasn't sure where I was going yet, but I knew I couldn't stay there. Before I left, I wrote a note and left it on the kitchen counter. "Husband, I can't do this anymore. I've tried to talk to you about what's been happening, but you refuse to take me seriously. Your mom has violated my privacy over and over again, and instead of supporting me, you've made me feel like I'm crazy for being upset. I need some time and space to think about what I want and whether this marriage is worth saving. Don't contact me unless you're ready to have an honest conversation about everything that's happened. My name." So, Reddit, am I the a-hole? Should I go back to my husband? I'm feeling completely lost. Please help me out in the comments. Mini update. Hey Reddit, it's been a couple of weeks since I left, and I figured I'd give you all an update since so many of you have been asking what happened next. First off, thank you for all the support and advice. Reading through your comments helped me feel less alone in all of this. So, after I left, I stayed with a friend for a while. She's been a lifesaver, letting me crash on her couch and vent about everything. Honestly, just being in a space where I felt safe and respected made such a huge difference. I didn't realize how much anxiety I'd been carrying until I was out of that house. As for my husband, he's reached out a couple of times, but I've been keeping my distance. The first few texts were all about how I overreacted and how we need to fix this. He still doesn't seem to understand why I left in the first place, which is frustrating but not surprising. Then came the guilt trip. He started talking about how much MIL misses me and how she didn't mean any harm. He even said she's been crying every day since I left. I told him that her feelings aren't my responsibility, and until he's ready to acknowledge the real issue, her boundary crossing and his refusal to address it, I'm not coming back. The good news? He's finally agreed to go to counseling. I don't know if he's doing it to save our marriage or just to get me back home, but either way, it's a step in the right direction. I've told him I'm willing to talk, but only in a neutral setting with a therapist present. As for Mael, I made it clear that if I ever come back, there need to be firm boundaries in place. No more snooping, no more treating my things like they're hers to mess with, and definitely no more playing the victim when she gets called out. If she can't respect that, then she can't live with us. End of story. Right now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I don't know if this marriage is salvageable, but I'm open to trying if my husband can show me that he's serious about making changes. If not, well, I'm starting to realize I deserve better than this mess. Anyway, that's where things stand for now. I'll keep you posted if there are any big developments. Thanks again for all the support. It means more than you know.